This episode is brought to you by ESPN Plus. The final chapter in the rivalry between Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor will be written on July 10th at UFC 264, which is exclusively available to ESPN Plus subscribers for $69.99. Visit espnplus.com/Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by Philips One by Sonicare. One up your brushing with Philips One. It's a big step up from your manual toothbrush, with both rechargeable and battery-powered versions, so you can choose the one that best fits your life. Learn more at philips.com/one. That's PHILIPS.com/ONE.
It's time to Play Like a Jet with your host, Scott Mason.
Play like a Jet. What does that mean?
Mekhi Becton, ladies and gentlemen. Human beings that large should not run as fast as Mekhi Becton did. And if you like people just abusing other humans, the Mekhi Becton tape is for you.
Denzel Mims with another monster score of 70 yards.
Quick pass to Crowder, trying to get him out of space. Slips a tackle, and there he goes. Crowder! It's a foot race, and Crowder is in there. A 69-yard touchdown.
Takes a shot. Here's Corey Davis, wide open. Davis still going, and he's in for the touchdown.
Hill hit immediately when he got the handoff.
You know
and that's the Q-inator.
Oh my gosh. Listen, thank you.
From the PlayLikeAJet.com digital studios, this is Play Like a Jet. My name is Scott Mason. You can follow me on Twitter at PlayLikeAJet1. And we are doing our 2021 Jets offseason reviews. And I wanted to bring in a familiar face and voice to the show to talk about everything that the Jets have done in the 2021 offseason as we get ready for training camp coming up. And that, of course, is the co-founder of U Stadium, Mr. Nick Spano. Nick, it's been a while. This is crazy. We haven't done a podcast together since just after the draft.
I was actually just thinking of that. I was like, when was the last time? It had been, the first weekend of May, right? Like, so the draft was the last weekend of April, and then then you had the draft start or the draft wrap up show that we did, and then it's been the whole month of May, whole month of June now, and I missed hopping on, man. It's been at least like 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's crazy, and I haven't heard Luca crying in the background in at least 6 weeks either. So what's going on, Luca? Hope you're doing well. The Jets, things are looking up for them. I know things are looking up for Luca because he got some new toys, and so did the Jets. So let's talk about that. The first new toy is the head coach, Robert Saleh. Now, I know when the hire was made, you really liked it. We talked about it on the show, but now that we are just about at training camp and what you've seen with OTAs and mini camp and everything on Flight 2021 and things that you've heard from people behind the scenes that you've talked to, where do you sit on the Saleh hire? Are you still just as jazzed up about it as you were when they actually hired him?
Yeah, probably a little more. It's because you hear all the good things, the positivity, the leadership, the coaches, the players coach, and you don't really get to kind of see it for yourself. Obviously, we'll see how it plays out on the field, in a couple of weeks, but just seeing the reports and some of the videos and audio clips, and like you said, the Flight 2021 show, you get to see exactly what other people have said about Saleh, and talking to a lot of the 49er guys that I know, some of them will cover the team. What you see is what you get from Saleh, and I guess what we hear is what you get from Saleh. He is who he is, very personable, smart, energetic, and it seems like, the best part about it is, we've just gone through a decade since Rex Ryan, which is crazy to think, of not having any kind of image or have any kind of like anything to hold your, hold your hat on. No vision for the team. It was just kind of no emotion from Bowles, no emotion from Gase, no spark. They didn't have anything that you felt good about, really. Obviously, that 1 year with Fitzpatrick was a fluke season. But other than that, you didn't feel like the team was being built the right way. You didn't feel like they were coached well. You didn't feel like the players were excited to come to work every day. And I think, it's been 6 months since he's been hired, Saleh, right? It's in late January. Here we are in late June. And it seems like there's some excitement around the players again. And just seeing social media posts and posts and seeing guys on practice and mini camp and stuff, it seems like the players like being there. They like this guy, and it seems like we know what we're going to get. It's this aggressive, the front is going to get after you. That's what Saleh and the defensive coordinator and the coaching staff's MO is. We're going to get after you. We're going to pressure you. We're going to leave the back end a little bit, on their own. And, hopefully we can get pressure all the time, but it's going to be a quick, ferocious defense, similar to Rex Ryan. I know Rex obviously had Revis, so he would really just be able to kind of play the island, obviously the Revis Island, and send some extra guys at you. But now with the personnel that they have guys who can get after it, which Rex really didn't have. The front was more about stopping the run, playing stout defense up front, and different blitz packages that Rex would put together, and Mike Pettin and whoever he had kind of assisting him on the defense. But it seems like there's an identity to the Jets, and that's the main, or at least they're building up to an identity for the Jets, which is something we've been missing for the past decade. So seeing Saleh, there's good vibes about him. There's positivity, where the past two coaches were just as bland as you can be. So it's exciting to kind of hit the reset button and bring in somebody who kind of like, Rex Ryan spoke for the fan base. He was a perfect kind of figurehead for us nutty Jet fans. We're a crazy bunch. Similar. I always consider us similar to the Eagles fans. I know some people won't like that, but it's kind of true. I think Philly fans are a little bit crazy in a bad way than Jet fans are, but Jet fans have a certain kind of mystique about them, and I think Saleh matches that energy, which Rex did in the beginning. Rex was like the perfect Jets head coach for the first 2-3 years, and unfortunately, he was never kind of able to become a better head coach than he was, and the pieces weren't built right around him. But I think Saleh brings something to the table that these past two coaches haven't. So it's really exciting to see. And the Flight 2021 thing was awesome, and you get it's not bullshit. You could see this guy is real, and that's what when I first spoke to people around the league about Saleh, is like, he is legit. Like, this is who he is. There's no front here. Like, Gase could put up a good front, and he obviously suckered Chris Johnson into hiring him, and then he was not the guy who they all thought he was. And I don't think there's any of that with Saleh. I think what you see is what you get.
Are you just as bullish on his coaching staff?
I am, yeah. I mean, the LaFleur thing was basically what really kind of sold me, because especially in today's age and, where the league is going on offense and the quarterback position, knowing we were going to draft a young quarterback. And then the next question would be, all right, well, Saleh really is your defensive-minded guy, even though he's going to be more of like the CEO and kind of let his staff coach, and he would kind of just oversee. He was going to have that little favoritism towards the defense. It's just natural. It's where he grew up, what he grew up coaching. So the LaFleur hire was massive. I just think I am so excited that I'm worried, because I think he's going to be good enough to the point where in 2 years, he'll, if all goes well, he'll probably be getting a head coaching job somewhere. But, you have to, in today's league, build the staff. And it's just as important of creating depth on the roster is creating depth in the coaching staff and hiring guys behind Mike LaFleur who can step up, and you can just, move them up the ranks if LaFleur does get the head coaching job. But we'll worry about that when it happens, because that's a good problem to have. That means Zach Wilson is developed, and, the Jets are heading into the right path where we want them to go.
Because you're a loyal listener of this podcast, I want to let you in on something awesome, and that's HelloFresh. Their quick, easy meals can be made in 15 to 20 minutes. You can get breakfast on the go, tons of easy options, and here's the best part. You don't have to go to the store, and it doesn't require a lot of meal prep. They send you the recipe, they send you the ingredients, it's easy to make. You have yourself fresh food right there. They've got a wide variety of delicious options for all 3 meals of the day, plus snacks and special treats in between within the HelloFresh market. And I'm going to tell you how you can get up to 14 free meals plus free shipping. All you have to do is go to HelloFresh.com/ACSports14 and use the promo code ACSports14 for up to 14 meals plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/ACSports14, promo code ACSports14. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit.
This episode is brought to you by HP Instant Ink. No one is reading your mind, but HP Instant Ink knows when your printer is running low and sends you new cartridges, so you never have to think about ink. Save up to 50%. You'll pay less than $5 a month for ink and never run out again. Find out if your printer is eligible and enroll today at hpinstantink.com. Conditions apply. For details, visit hp.com/instantink Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by the NBA. Witness mind-bending competition on the biggest stage between the best players in the world, a place where legends are made. It's impossible jumps that seem to freeze in midair and spectacular steals that you didn't see coming. It's that one play that lasts seconds that you will talk about for the rest of your life. And let's face it, it's the unpredictability of it all, never knowing when the next big moment will happen. Huge wins and crushed dreams. It's the drama of it all. You just can't make this stuff up. That's the NBA. That's game. The NBA playoffs are happening right now. Don't miss all the action.
Support for this podcast comes from Invent Together. According to studies, less than 13% of all inventors who hold a U.S. patent are women. Black and Hispanic college graduates patent at half the rate of their white counterparts. But we can fix that by increasing participation in innovation and patenting by underrepresented groups. It would quadruple the number of American inventors and increase annual GDP by almost $1 trillion. Invent Together is a coalition of organizations, companies, universities, and concerned citizens committed to ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to invent and patent. Because the more diverse the American patent system gets, the stronger and more successful our nation will become. What can you do to help diverse inventors patent and unleash economic opportunity? Find out at inventtogether.org. Learn more and take action today.
Play like a Jet. Play like a Jet.
Nick, what are your thoughts on the free agency strategy that they employed and also the ultimate results? We talked a little bit about this on the podcast with the individual signings, but now that we can see the big picture, including Morgan Moses, what do you think here?
Yeah, I think Morgan Moses is really the what's the correct lame term you could say, like the ribbon on it, the ribbon on the free agency period, right? Because what was the one thing we were all kind of frustrated about was, well, we didn't really sign a veteran free agent to upgrade the offensive line. We were upset we missed out on Joe Thuney, right? Upset we missed out on Corey Linsley. So, we knew one of those early picks was going to be an offensive lineman. You thought it may have been a right tackle. Obviously moved up for Vera Tucker, which is awesome. And then you were still just a little worried. The Jets like George Fant, and they still do, which is why I was somewhat surprised when they went so aggressively after Morgan Moses, because that hasn't been the Jets' MO in free agency, right? And you even got a cool inside view from the scouting director for the Jets, into how they handled free agency. And, they wanted to be out and go and, target their guys, but they had basically a limit on everybody. And they had an idea of who they were going to sign. So, I just think they saw Moses as a immediate impact starter, an upgrade over Fant. And I knew they were worried about their offensive line depth because they were kind of sniffing around the second or third tier free agents like Dennis Kelly, offensive linemen who can come in, play multiple positions, and you can get them on a cheap, 1 year, $2 million deal, and just upgrade the tackle depth, which the Jets obviously, and most teams around the NFL, teams have a hard time finding solid enough starters, let alone depth that you feel good about. So when a guy like Moses hit the market, they were right away were interested in him. So I think that's just one of those things that a player shakes free from a team for whatever reason. And you go and you you upgrade. So it really brings the whole free agency together because, what did the Jets need to do when we head into free agency, right? They needed an upgrade at the edge, obviously. We still probably do, but they went and they got their, the number one guy that they feel who's going to be your elite, pass rusher, and they think he's going to be actually a guy instead of getting all the pressures and hurries and quarterback hits. They think with the supporting cast of Quinnen Williams, Foley, obviously the depth, on the D-line interior, that Lawson's going to be able to close this year and put up those double-digit sacks that, his traits are, you feel like his traits equal up to the 10, 11, 12 sacks. Then we knew we needed a receiver, right? A top edge receiver. And they targeted Corey Davis from the start. And you could see why during LaFleur's little video breakdown of Corey Davis on film. And they got those guys on day one. And then they filled out, obviously they wanted more presence up front because Saleh wants to rotate, get fresh legs in there. Sheldon Rankins, great sign. Vinny Curry, they think he's going to bring in some depth. Ronald Blair, another guy familiar with Saleh. So, they brought in multiple guys up front. And then that one, well, I guess you could say two because they really haven't added any corners. And that was kind of the one thing that's been left out. But I think they really do want to see these young guys. And then they'll probably add, maybe like a waiver guy on cut down day, but I think they want young bodies back there again, that they can just keep rotating guys in. And the pressure is going to be on the guys up front really to get after the quarterback. So I think obviously if that doesn't go as well as planned, that's where these multiple top picks next year are going to be focused. Right. But the Moses signing last week really just pulls it all together. And here is your big offensive lineman signing, because if Moses was a free agent at the start of in March, he would have been the top one of the top offensive tackles available. So to be able to get him on such a friendly deal they did in June, that was the Jets. I know a lot of people are like, oh, the Jets have so much cap space that they can, be aggressive in free agency right away, because the teams were up against the cap with COVID. Well, this was that happening in June. So the Jets had a large chunk of cap space, and they were able to actually add a player like Morgan Moses in June, where other teams, really had a scratch and claw to either A, get under the cap, or B, just kind of survive, or tread water. So this was the Jets kind of being able to use that cap space they had and obviously have a need and grab a player, I don't know if I want to say a high-level starter, but definitely a good starter in the NFL at right tackle on a really good deal in late June.
Before we get to the draft, let's talk about Sam Darnold. I know that, like most Jets fans, you lost faith in Sam Darnold, and I know that you were in favor of the trade. And at the time we talked about it, we just thought that it was best for both sides to start fresh. Looking at it now as we head into training camp, where are you on the Darnold deal? Do you think they got good value for him? And do you think that ultimately Joe Douglas is going to be proven right for having made a clean break here?
Yeah, yes and yes. In short, I think, being able to get a 2 and a 4 next year, was able to get at it with a 6 last year when last year's draft, which just passed. He sets himself up so nicely that I think they think Sam Darnold just, no matter how much they talk, well about him and how much everybody likes the person Sam Darnold, I think deep down they all know that this guy isn't a good enough starter in the NFL. So to not only be able to acquire the picks for him, obviously he's going to start at quarterback for a team that you're hoping is going to lose games because you have their number 2 pick next year. So they're expecting him, or probably selfishly hoping that he's the kind of pretty bad quarterback he was for the Jets here in Carolina too. Because the more games they lose next year, obviously the Jets have, a higher pick. So it would be good for Joe Douglas. You don't want to root against a guy, especially a guy but I don't think any Jet fan, it's not like when Sanchez was here and we were just like so fed up and you just wanted to move on from him because you've seen him for multiple years. I don't think anybody kind of roots openly against Darnold or wants to see him fail. It'd be nice if he was just very average and then had a good year in 2022. When they don't have the pick and he survives and he, is able to kind of create a nice career for himself. But yeah, I just think we all knew it was time, and he didn't have any of that edge, which worried me from day one. I was a huge Darnold fan. Like, I think like many of us, when the Jets were able to trade up and he fell to us at 3, you kind of just felt like a shift, and you were like, did we just kind of get lucky for the first time ever? And unfortunately, it turned out to, yes, he takes some of the blame, and a lot of the blame is on the Jets and Adam Gase, Todd Bowles, and the 20 different coordinators he had over his 3 years here. But at the end of the day, man, these players deserve the blame too, and he just didn't cut. He just didn't cut it, and it was time when they made the move to make the move. And I think, for seeing, you're not trading for, the quarterback, the back of the football card on Sam Darnold, right? You're trading for what you hope it could be, because if you were trading for what he's done in the league, you wouldn't be able to get a future 8th round pick for the guy. He was terrible when you look at his stats and you put on the majority of his tape. So Douglas was able to sell what could be in Sam Darnold, and I guess took advantage of a team that knew that they weren't able to upgrade at quarterback in the draft. Maybe they could have if they stayed there and Fields was there, but maybe the Bears would have moved up even higher. But felt like they weren't able to get a guy in the draft. Obviously weren't able to trade for Watson. We know what happened there. And just weren't able to get any of those top tier guys that everybody thought was available, which turned out none of them got moved. We spent that whole offseason talking about all those guys and nothing happened. So Douglas was able to kind of get, he wanted a 2, and that's what was kind of talked about throughout the entire offseason. So he got a 2+, and we'll have to wait a year. But now you go into next year with 2 1s and 2 2s, 3, 4, 2 5s, like a bunch of draft picks again next year, which I'm sure he can move again and, add some more picks to 2022 or 2023 when, they'll just have like their normal stock of 1 through 7s. So he's really set them up nicely in the draft from the Darnold trade and obviously the Adams trade. But yeah, it was time to move on. And luckily, it probably set us back a few years with the Darnold failure. But I think it seems like they're on the right path now. And I think everybody should have faith in Joe Douglas because, I talked about this with my brothers, obviously, and I think Joe Douglas is the best figure the Jets have had since a Bill Parcells. So I think they just need to ride this thing out and don't get, if they go 5-12 this year, don't get on the guy. Let them continue building what they're building, because he really did have to. I mean, we've seen it built from the ground up before and try to build it and it didn't work, but he had to build it from below the ground. So he's putting the pieces together. I think they'll be much better. I'm not sure if this year will kind of result in any playoff push, but we'll see. I mean, we'll see. I think they'll be definitely a competitive and more fun team to watch.
Now it's out with the old, in with the new. Darnold is gone. Zach Wilson is here. Let's talk about the draft. As you saw the draft unfold with Justin Fields falling all the way to 11, with Trey Lance going at number 3, with Mac Jones going at number 15, what are your thoughts? Do you think that they made the right move grabbing Wilson at 2? Should they have traded down and grabbed Fields? Maybe they should have taken Trey Lance. What do you think there? As far as the rest of the draft, what did you think of the overall strategy, loading up on offense? What did you think of the Elijah Vera Tucker trade up? I know that it's been controversial with a lot of the statisticians and analytics guys. And then, of course, after the early part of the draft, they went all defense, seemed to give Robert Saleh some toys to play with there on his side of the ball with Jeff Ulbrich. Talk to me about all of those things. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I absolutely love Zach Wilson. Thought that was the clear and obvious pick for the Jets there. So anything other than that, I would have been disappointed with. I'm not a huge Trey Lance guy. I like Lance. I like his potential. Just don't think it would have been a great situation here. Don't like Fields at all. So that was never a consideration, really, in my opinion. Not a big Mac Jones guy. It was really Lawrence or Wilson, and it seemed like that was the case for the Jets too. So very excited about that. The fit in the offense, the Shanahan, LaFleur offense. Love that. So excited about that and what they're doing. Obviously building this wall in front of Wilson. I mean, They have absolute animals at left and right tackle, like 6'7", 6'8", 350, 365 pound dudes. Like, I don't know when the last time, or if ever, the Jets had guys like that. But then the Vera Tucker move was awesome. I mean, these statistician guys, it's like, I mean, for the sake of getting like worked up about it, it's just ridiculous in my opinion. You traded 2 third-round picks to move up into the top 15 of the draft and take a guy who they had as a top 10 red flag, not a red flag, but a red stamp guy who they loved, and then still have a second-round pick to get a guy like Elijah Moore, who they also had as a top 25 pick, and then get a Michael Carter. So if you want to look at you can't just look at the move as like an individual move, because they had so much draft capital that they were able to be flexible. What did we get on? Remember the old GM Idzik when we had the 12 picks, and everybody and their mother thought that they were going to trade up and move around, and he ends up picking 12 guys, and literally I don't think any of them are still in the NFL. You have these, Joe Douglas trades a guy like Jamal Adams, acquires all these picks, Leonard Williams, to be able to move around and target guys who, it's not just you don't hoard all these picks. Like you have these picks to be flexible. You didn't even trade a second round pick. You didn't trade a future round pick. You traded 2 threes, and you're still making 3 picks in the top 3 rounds. So, or 4 picks now with Michael Carter, who they feel really good about. And you go get a potential elite starting guard who could be an all-pro right out of the gate to complete what you came here to do, right? Like Joe Douglas is an offensive line guy through and through. He wants to build this ultimate offensive line that you could do anything around. You run the ball, Zach Wilson could run the full offense behind. Becton, Vera Tucker, there's your left side for the next, hopefully, decade plus. And not just like solid players. They feel like these 2 guys could be all pros. Ask Dallas if they regret adding offensive line. No, they didn't ultimately win anything, but that's a different story for what they've done. But that offensive line for years was the reason why that offense was top 5, top 10 every season. So, you're playing in the Northeast. The Jets, they still, at the end of the day, they need to run the ball. I know this is a pass-happy league, but you have to build up this offensive line. It was one of the worst for the longest time. And I think they finally, I still don't think Douglas is done at all. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they use a first or second round pick on another offensive lineman next year. Let's see how Moses does and what McGovern looks like, but that right guard spot is not filled, and there'll be a battle for that in camp. And then you might need a center next year, so he's going to still be using picks. So I thought the whole ripping the trade for Vera Tucker was a joke. I mean, you traded 2 third-round picks. You didn't trade a 2. If you would have traded that, what was it, 34? 34 and a third to move up. I could see where there's some frustration. But he didn't. He traded 2 thirds, which he was able to get out of a future trade. So I thought that was laughable. I know that was the Daily News kid, the former Daily News kid, who was the ultimate dweeby troll. So I couldn't care less what he said. But then to wrap up the draft, the Michael Carter pick I loved. It was almost like you kind of knew that was coming, right? It was almost like when round 3 ended, you looked at who was available and you were like, oh, Michael Carter is 100% going to be a Jet. You felt, I don't know. I remember watching it and seeing him there. I'm like, it's definitely going to be Michael Carter. I didn't have any inside info that, that they were going to pick him. I knew they liked him, but, there were a few other running backs available there and some other, I think the linebacker from LSU was there who a lot of people liked. But, when Michael Carter was there, I was like, man, that's a perfect fit. And obviously during the flight 2021, you saw how much they liked Carter too. So that was awesome. And then, I'm not going to say I was thrilled with some of these later round picks. I know we talked during the draft, there were a few guys who we liked that were still around. I know, some of these corners that the kid from Pittsburgh and Michael Carter too, I really liked. But outside of that, and then I really like Nasruddin. I was shocked and kind of when I was watching the draft, I forgot he was even there. But it seems like they're guys that Saleh really wants, and guys that are flexible and can play multiple positions. And so who am I to Saleh's been doing this a lot longer than I have, so I'm not going to second guess what he did there. But I definitely wanted at least maybe to grab another offensive lineman, some depth guys there were some guys who I liked that were still available in the 6th round. I know the Chiefs took Trey Smith from Tennessee that was there, and he had some injury red flags, but it seems like that was a strategy, right? Offense early, Elijah Moore. Can't believe I forgot about him. Elijah Moore was someone they coveted, and Vera Tucker, obviously. So, come away with a guy who you hope is your quarterback one for the next decade, an offensive lineman who you think is all pro potential, and Elijah Moore, who, I mean, have you heard anything but like rave reviews from even the most like critical beat writers or experts who would rip the Jets for anything? Like everything you hear about this guy in camp is watch out, like immediate impact right away from this guy. So as a whole, I mean, you got to be really excited. And what makes you more excited is the stockpile of picks they have next year, in a year where they'll be able to do their full scouting. Like you saw through, again, 2021, the kind of trials and tribulations with the COVID season of being able to scout these guys and how different it was. So now you'll have a real season to kind of go and get, go through the pro days, even though they did this year was still a little weird. Go through the combine, the real Senior Bowl, obviously a full college schedule. So you'll have even more normalcy to the next draft, and they'll be loaded with more picks. So that really leaves you excited. Not that I know, but I would hopefully, if you see this team this year kind of progress, maybe you can be in a position where you can trade one of these second rounders next year, or be more aggressive with these picks and add impact veteran players. Like I know Julio wouldn't make sense for the Jets, but next year maybe they're in a consideration that a guy like a Julio who's available, you can make that trade and feel good about it as maybe the missing piece of the offense. So maybe you're in a position next spring or summer where a star player is available for whatever reason. You can be the one who's aggressive and trades with him, like an Xavier Howard, right? It would be a great fit for the Jets. Obviously, Dolphins aren't going to trade him here, and the Jets aren't going to make a trade for a corner like that now. But if the Jets are in that position next year and you feel like, the corner is the missing piece, you can trade a 2 and more for Xavier Howard. So that's what I'm talking about, like being aggressive for a veteran player that becomes available. So just wrapping up the draft as a whole in the offseason, I don't think like we all do these mock off seasons and we're usually disappointed, but if someone would have put this on paper back in like January when we're doing all the mock season stuff, I don't think anybody could have been upset with the type of haul that they were able to get, upgrade this roster that was so, last year at this time, you were just like, wow, this is a really bad roster. And now, you upgraded the talent pretty much at every level except for cornerback right now, which still looks a little weak. And maybe you're a little worried about the linebacker position, but Mosley looks great, and Jared Davis is a guy who they're raving about. We'll see. So, yeah, I mean, I think outside of corner, which I know you've been on since day one this offseason, every position has really been upgraded in a major way.
That's going to wrap up part 1 of our 2021 off-season review with Nick Spano. We'll be back tomorrow for part 2. In the meantime, make sure that you're following U Stadium on Twitter at U Stadium, and download the app and turn on all the notifications. You'll see a lot of our content there too, as you will also at playlikeajet.com and the Play Like a Jet YouTube channel, where there is a ton of material right now. Luke Grant is going crazy, putting up great film, including a bunch of stuff on Morgan Moses, how he plays in the running game, and a couple of different videos showing him against top competition at edge rusher Shaq Barrett and TJ Watt. So go ahead and check those out and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and give us a 5-star review on the podcast if you haven't done that already. Easy way to help out the show if you like what we're doing. Doesn't take you much time, doesn't cost you any money, but it goes a long way to help us out. So if you could go ahead and do that for us, we'd be quite grateful. And for the latest and greatest in New York Jets podcasts and content, you know where to go. That's Play Like a Jet Digital and PlayLikeAJet.com.